we are seeing some vehicles starting to arrive there, that various people have started to arrive. I think that's the Western Cape Premier, Mr. Alan Windy, who has just arrived, and the control room has confirmed that it is him, because you can't clearly see sometimes from seeing people from the back. But Blaine, from here we now have the scrum. You can see the media scrum is forming. Quite a number of people, also as well as journalists, are also here trying to get the best shot. There's also various dignitaries who have gone inside. Reverend Peter Story as well, who were in conversation with a little earlier on, is also now inside, and he's getting ready for those proceedings, Vuyo.
Indeed, and here, of course, in our makeshift studio in front of the cathedral, where it's all going to happen, we are joined by Zubeida Jaffer, who is a journalist. She's a publisher, a struggle activist in her own right. Good evening, Zubeida. Thank you very much for being our friend.
I love the fact that you think it's good evening. You're so used to working.
So used to working in the evening.
That's good morning.
And thank you very much for joining us.
It's an absolute honor. Pleasure to be here today.
We were talking earlier about the fact that it hardly ever rains on New Year's Day in Cape Town, in spite, of course, of the often miserable weather you find in this part of the country. But on New Year's Day, it's generally pleasant. People can go to the beach and have fun. But look how it is today.
Well, it's the blessings for the arch, eh? It's Pula, it's coming. And it's so wonderful that he's getting every possible blessing on the day that he's sent off. So it's delightful.
Do you think whoever, like, he might be looking at us, we're thinking, look at them, they're all miserable.
He's laughing, and especially at us in the media, he was always very amused, firm and amused, and lecturing to us. But so he must be thinking, look at them now, standing there getting wet.
And Zubeida, one of the things that for me, and as a journalist, and I can only imagine for you when you were doing all those stories and listening to some of the political speeches that were made in this particular church behind us, I wonder for you as a journalist, did you always know that he was such a towering figure over the world? Because literally he was small, but he really became an influential figure. Were you always aware that you're in the presence of greatness?
He didn't become an influential figure. He was an influential figure right from the start. I mean, he was there at every turn. And that was so extraordinary, that he didn't skip a beat. And that's why one feels that the loss is so great, because he was on the streets. He was on the streets with the people. I remember at Governor Mbeki's funeral, he actually stopped his car and allowed me to sit next to him. And he said to me, those people that are running alongside the car, shouting Tutu, Tutu, those were the people who brought the change. And I said to him, but they still live in squalor, because Umgov had chosen to be buried in KwaZakele.
And if I can just pause you for a second, Vuyo, the family is also starting to arrive, and I think that's Mondli Kungubele there, the minister in the presidency as well.
The minister in the presidency, Mondli Kungubele, making his way to the cathedral. And on screen, we also seeing members of the Tutu family making their way here. The convoy you're seeing on the one screen the members of the Tutu family who are making their way here.
And Zubeida, as we were talking, I mean, that home in Milnerton, a lot of people are really thinking back to those moments, but you were still talking to us about those times, people shouting Tutu, and funny enough, I can't help but think of today as people are saying 22.
22, that is amazing. You know, it was so interesting that he said to me that look at the patience of the people. That was in 2001, but But those who have so much complain all the time. You know, he was very conscious of that. And I've never forgotten that, you know. I've also never forgotten the fact that he had to make the effort to take us to the beaches to open up, you know.
Zubeida, just a quick one. I'm going to ask us just to pause. I know we have you for quite some time, but I do believe that our colleague Vuyo Samgele Masego is standing by with the mayor of Cape Town, Mayor Jordan Hill Lewis, as well as the minister in the presidency. Samgele, if you are able to hear us, pick up then with the minister and the mayor. All right, it doesn't look like we have Samgele there in the picture, as we can see him talking to. We'll try and get Samgele back. Now, Zubeida, one of the things that we were talking about is his influence, is the fact that, you know, he was able to draw people from all walks of life, but other people really just reduce Vuyo, his contribution to rainbowism, if I can put it that way, and just say he was able to pull people together. But his legacy is bigger than that.
He had an impact on the world. You know, he was not scared to speak out about issues all across the world. And I hear his impact was enormous. It's not just about fluffy, sort of airy-fairy, nice coming together. It was about stern stuff. It was about, you know, teaching us that we all have to be connected, you know, and when we are connected, when we are together, when we reach out, when we look beyond the race and class, then we can be strong and we can solve our problems, you know.
In fact, one of the elders, former Prime Minister was talking yesterday on one of our programs about how the world actually identified Desmond Tutu as a person of interest, as one, as a global leader in his own right. They took notice of him early on, and especially in the absence, of course, of the political leadership of the country. Well, the authentic political leadership of the country at the time. Remember, your Nelson Mandelas were on Robben Island. Your Oliver Tambos were in exile. Your Robert Sobukwes were in prison, and so on. And when people like Desmond Tutu started emerging, the world started noticing. And you will know this, Zubeida Jaffer. That's when then people like Oliver Tambo started saying, how do we then get to have these religious leaders who have demonstrated an ability and a capacity to be leaders in their own right, and to be able to mobilize South Africans? How do we then leverage on what we are seeing already? And Desmond Tutu really, you know, took up, you know, the guardrails, and the rest, as they say, is history. Is history.
Yes, he taught us that as that it's all one, that religions, there are different religions, but we are all one, and we are all on the same path. We are all on that same path, trying to connect with something bigger than ourselves. And yesterday I had an extraordinary experience, purely by chance. Came into the cathedral at exactly the time when the family was there, not knowing really this was happening, and walked along with them and had the privilege of being there when the coffin was opened. And what I think he's teaching us, as he did in life, that we have to be committed to simplicity. The coffin is a pine coffin. He was lying there, and it was extraordinary to see, in a white robe, with no fancy capes, as some bishops do have.
And Zubeida, sorry, just a second. I'm going to ask us just to pause for a moment there. As you can see on the side of the screen, the family is making their way here to the St. George's Cathedral, and our colleague Vuyo, Vanessa Puna, is watching these proceedings for us. Vanessa, I wonder, as the family makes their way here, surely a lot of emotions are really at play right now.
Good morning to you. You've just joined us here in Cape Town. What you're seeing on screen at the moment is, of course, the widow of late Archbishop and family members, the children making their way towards the city centre, towards St. George's Cathedral. They've left their Milton home a short while ago for this, if I can call it, a final drive to say farewell to their beloved husband of over 60 years.